Hi, Nick Black here, back again. Let me continue. This would be video number 3 on chapter 1. Still working through some of this technology and stuff here, but we're just going to keep on going rather than spend time talking about that. Christopher Columbus. Here's something most people don't know about Christopher Columbus. And you can look this up, but it is widely believed that Christopher Columbus was not the first person to visit America in his own crew that came. In fact, it is widely believed that one of the Pinzon, probably Martin Pinzon, Pinzon, I believe is how it's spelled, brothers, actually visited Florida prior to Columbus's arrival in the New World. In fact, it is believed that he did so, but didn't have the evidence and proof, etc., to share it with the New World. And it is one that he came back with Christopher Columbus. And also, the reason why Columbus was able to raise some of the money that he was able to raise for the trip was due to the fact that the Pinzon brothers had a high reputation. Now, you will remember, most of you, if you remember the Nina, the Maria, Nino, the Pinto, and the Santa Maria, one of the ships seemed to get lost in the storm, and then they had to combine 2 of the ships into one, and then they met back in Spain. Well, what actually happened there was, it seems like the older Pinzon brother, I believe it was Martin Pinzon. Sorry, some of these things that I can't remember the exact name off the top of my head, but you can look it up if you're interested in remembering his exact first name. But I believe it's Martin Pinzon. He's was racing back to the New World to get there to claim it before Columbus. He did not obviously achieve the claim and glory and got there back. But thereafter, a few years after, there was fighting over the wealth of the New World and who it went to and how much should go to certain so and somebody else. It was tried in court, in the Spanish courts, and it was decided that the Pinzons actually were at least equals in arrivals first in the New World, and therefore their names should be known, as well as Christopher Columbus. But Christopher Columbus was the individual who really, he's the name that stands out as the person who really brought the New World, to the knowledge of the New World, to the Western world, to the Old World, as you call it. The knowledge of the Western Hemisphere, of the Americas, to Western Europe. And for that is his great accomplishment. There's a lot of stuff people could talk about at Columbus. Did he truly believe in God? Was he an upright and moral man? Did he treat what became the slaves, the Indians in Hispaniola, and elsewhere in there very well? Let's not worry about that right now. Probably he didn't do a lot of the good things that we want to think that. Here's what we do know. Christopher Columbus was the man who brought the knowledge of the New World into Western Europe. He was not a good man. He is not a Christian man. He was an individual who had a moral and value system based on Christianity, perhaps. He is a person that was his fleet was paid for by Christianity. Okay, they discovered the New World based on Christianity. But contrary to some books that you may have heard or read, he was not a God-fearing, praying everyday individual. This was a rough and tough sailor. Okay, when he came to the New World, there was quite a few things he did that are very, very unethical and very immoral, and we would look back at him as not someone that we should be highly reverent of, okay? But what we talk about when we celebrate Columbus Day, we're not celebrating Christopher Columbus the person. What we're celebrating is Christopher Columbus's discovery and sharing that discovery of the New World with Western Europe and the New World. That is what we're celebrating, and that's something that needs to be remembered. Right before Columbus reached the New World, there was an invention. I started to talk about this earlier. The printing press. The printing press is perhaps the second greatest invention of all time. Maybe the wheel, maybe the printing press. Some people said recently the internet or smartphones. I think I saw one girl, or she was about 16, and she was trying to take a selfie, and I think she thought that Instagram was the greatest invention in world history. No, I don't think any of those are the greatest invention in world history. Instagram, I mean, or any social media platform. But the printing press was one of the greatest inventions in world history. It massively increased the spread of knowledge, specifically scientific knowledge. Previous to that, books were extremely rare. It was hard to reproduce and copy. Now the value of them is plummeted, but the ability to produce books and information for people to read became massively increased. Just similar. The only thing that we can compare it similarly to is the invention of the internet today. Someone alive in the 1970s compared to someone alive today, and they can ask them how much easier it is to get the information that they want. Today, if we want to know something, we just Google it. Everybody says Google it for everything. Okay, if you want to know who Martin Pinzon was, right now, you're on your phone, you type in Martin Pinzon, hit go, and Wikipedia, boom, you'll have the answer in 10 seconds. In 1970, you would have had to go to libraries and hunt for that, and for looking encyclopedias. It could have been a nightmare to find that one little tiny piece of information. Similarly, the spread of information was massively, I mean, to use a word from our president, it was a bigly deal. Okay? The spread of technology, the spread of knowledge, and most importantly, here we go right back to Christianity. Most importantly, the spread of God's word. The book that was printed the most, the Bible. Other things that 70%, I believe, of all literature printed, was Protestant tracts or Protestant religious literature. God used this invention at that specific time, right about the time of the Protestant Reformation, and you find these events don't happen just randomly. 1450, you have printing presses. 1492, the end of the war against Islam in Europe. 1492, the discovery of the New World. Early 1500s, Martin Luther nails his theses on the door of the Wittenberg Church. Okay. Erasmus writes the Bible, translates the King James Bible as we know, our Bible today, as we refer it, from the original sources. Okay, these are 5-6 events that all happen. The Protestant Reformation breaks out early 1500s. These events all happen within basically a lifetime. The greatest transformative time in history possibly is from around 1450 to 1550, 1575. That is possibly the greatest transformative time in history until possibly the last 50 to 100 years. We'll talk about that a long time later in maybe a future class. But it is important to know that. I mentioned the sugar revolution. Basically, we all drink sugar. We all love it. Europe did back then too. And very rapidly, the Canary Islands, they needed sugarcane. And the Cayman Islands, we had sugarcane there. Sugarcane's very good. Actual sugarcane, you chop it off, you eat it. It's great. Okay, today, most sugar is not from sugarcane, it's from a different process. But you could grow sugarcane in the Canary Islands, but it's a rough and it's a hard agricultural job, and therefore you needed a labor source. It wasn't something animals could do. You needed people to do it. It was hard. People died. The death rate was rather high. It was way more profitable if you used people against their wills. And both slavery, the modern chattel slavery that we discussed, really occurred in the modern, and not the modern, but the context that most of you think about slavery as plantation owner, hundreds of slaves working in the fields. That came due to the sugar revolution. Started in the Canary Islands, etc., the Portuguese. Okay, when the Europeans came to the New World, they brought some things with them besides good things. Malaria, yellow fever, but the bad one, really bad one, smallpox. Smallpox devastated, just annihilated the New World. Okay? massive death everywhere in the New World. Some have suggested 90% of all people in the Western Hemisphere passed away due to smallpox, especially due to disease and especially smallpox. Within 50 years of the Spanish arrival, about 1 million, the population of Hispaniola went from about 1 million to about 200. That is question number 6, in case you were wondering. And question number 7, due to disease, an immense percentage of Native Americans died. What percentage was that? That was 90%. Now, did it go only one way? No, it did not. It went both ways. The disease syphilis came out of the Americas, goes to the Old World, and causes a similar, but maybe perhaps not quite as extensive devastation. Again, large numbers of deaths and disease due to syphilis. All right. Gold and silver came out of the New World, go to the Old World. Corn, potatoes, pineapples, tomatoes, tobacco, beans, vanilla, chocolate, go to the Old World from the New World. From the Old World comes rice, coffee, sugar, wheat, horses, cows, pigs, and a bunch of other diseases that I discuss, including mainly smallpox and some of the bubonic plague. It is notable here that with disease, our textbook says the Indians did take a kind of revenge on the early explorers by injecting syphilis into their society unintentionally. It doesn't appear that they, and I'm specifying that here because it doesn't appear that they use like needles or something of the kind. It does appear that they perhaps tried to use tainted blood onto their master's bread. Our textbook says that, and how that works, we can't really for sure. But basically, the concept here is disease went both ways, although it seemed to hit the New World, the Americas, far harder and wiped out much of their population. Spanish conquistadors, eager for, well, they came into the New World for two main purposes: in the service of God and gold and glory. They did not come for gold and glory. They did not come for the service of God. They came for service of God and gold and glory. Two, in that time, where that group of men are often intrinsically linked together. You cannot separate the two. As much as one might like to, we find that the early the Reconquistadors, the conquistadors from the Reconquista, which came from the Crusades, came in search of gold and glory, but while doing so, they believed they were coming in service of God. Those two are tied together dramatically. Question number 8 is list 3 famous explorers and their accomplishments. We have several famous explorers. We have Vasco Balboa, who discovered the Pacific Ocean in Panama. Francisco Magellan started from Spain in 1519 and sailed mostly around the world. He died in the Philippines, but his vessel came home from the Philippines in 1522. First navigation of the globe. Ponce de Leon explored Florida, which he thought seeking the fountain of youth. Francisco Coronado explored much of the New Mexico, and etc. A humorous story with him is the Spanish desire for gold was well known. As a result, they were constantly looking for gold, and the Indians were sick and tired of them. They were being mistreated, etc. And often it's thought under torture, hunting for gold. An Indian said, "Oh, there's a village of there's 7 villages of gold up that direction, and toward the north." And so these Indians who were being tormented basically led, intentionally, as far as we know, a large number of Spanish on a several year just wild goose chase. They traveled all around through New Mexico, up to the Colorado River, and perhaps as far east as Kansas. But they explored Arizona and New Mexico. Again, all in a wild goose case because they had been mistreating the Indians, and as a result, the Indians told them a red herring to try to lead them off the track, often or very possibly by torture. Through torture is where the idea first started. Francisco Pizarro. Oh, sorry, I'm going to go to Fernando de Soto first. He traveled through, found the Mississippi River, started in Florida, and traveled all the way to the Mississippi River. He is another explorer that you could list there. Francisco Pizarro. I'm not going to spend a long time on him, but he's an individual who is notable in discussion here. Francisco Pizarro and Hernan Cortez are arguably two of the world's greatest conquerors, although I don't think anyone says they were tremendous generals. Francisco Pizarro had 180 men. He was up against armies, the largest or the second largest empire in the entire world at the time. Now, how did he defeat them? They could have marshaled an army of possibly 1 million men. Well, possibly due to massive smallpox, and also there was a massive split within the Inca civilization itself. Half of them, they're in the middle of civil war. Basically, Pizarro came in, picked a side in the Civil War, used their soldiers to defeat the other side of the soldiers. Part of his main trick was he met with the emperor. The emperor didn't act scared. He acted like he was going to give him, and then he kills the emperor's bodyguards and grabs the emperor, and actually like an assassination plot, and then by controlling the emperor, forces the emperor to do what he wants, and the emperor basically dismantles his empire before he kills him. And I mean that's sort of the general narrative there. It's important to know, and we'll talk about this second with Cortez, but both Cortez and Pizarro, neither of them actually conquered the Aztecs or the Incas. That's actually a complete and utter myth. The Spanish, 100, 200 men, could not have came in and conquered, no matter how well their muskets fired or their armor was, 1 million men, okay, or 10,000s of men, okay? That is not what happened. What happened was the people were so brutally mistreated by the current governments. Okay, the Incas, their massive civil war, the Aztecs, most of the tribes that were ruled by the Aztecs hated them. They rebelled against the existing authority, using this inspiration of the Spanish as their leaders. And so the Spanish-led army conquered the Aztec Empire. The Spanish-led army conquered the Inca Empire. 98% of the soldiers on both sides were not Spanish and had nothing to do with the Spanish. The Indians were those who conquered their own other Indians. So it's important to remember that the Spanish, often they provide the generalship and some of the strategy and tactics, etc., and then eventually got the spoils, all that. But at the time, the Indians were just viewing them as basically mercenaries. We're gonna finish up here shortly. I mentioned Cortez. Cortez came from Cuba with several hundred men and a total of 16 fresh horses. It's an awful lot of horses. It's very important, he had a total of 16 fresh horses. Sarcasm there. Came in and I mentioned he conquered he conquered the Aztec Empire, which had its capital city of 300,000 people, Tenochtitlan. Okay, I believe that's how you say it, but again, pronunciation. That you read the title of the name and you'll understand why I'm not doing it. Yeah, you get why it's a little bit hard for me to pronounce. 300,000 people, over 10 square miles. It may have been the largest city in the world at that time, or one of the largest. It appears that it was larger. It was larger than most city in contemporary Europe. It also had floating gardens. It appears like it was a city surrounded by lakes, very beautiful, etc. This is also the place where, if you will remember, they have massive pyramids and they have human sacrifice. The human sacrifice is actually one of the main parts that drove the Spanish to just basically attack the Aztecs there. That is some of the disease massively also hit the Aztecs very shortly. The population, less than 100 years, went from 20 million to 2 million. thus the reason that the Spanish were able to conquer or get together control over the New World so easily. A couple other people here that notable names. John Cabot claimed the mainland North America for the English, and Jacques Cartier, or Jack Carter in English pronunciation, journeyed up the St. Lawrence River, claiming basically what became Canada for France. That is how you end up with the Spanish controlling South America, English North America, mainland North America, and then the French controlling the upper half of mainland North America and Canada. Number 9. What was the central institution in colonial New Mexico? The central institution in colonial New Mexico was very simply the mission, the Roman Catholic mission. What we had happen is very quickly, as soon as this new world became known, we have the Reconquistadors, the soldiers came, won the battle. Okay, now it's claimed in the Spanish name. Immediately following came a group of people that their motives were pure, it appears. Sometimes the way they carried them out was not. But it's a group of people that there's a lot of, it's hard to understand in our world today. But these are the Catholic friars, the Catholic monks, the Catholic priests. They came to the New World, not for wealth, not for glory. They left what would have been far easier lives for them. They came putting themselves in danger of disease, death, putting their lives on the line as missionaries. Catholic missionaries came to the New World to share Christianity with everyone they could. And they came and they did so extremely effectively. And now, remember, that Christianity they're sharing is Catholicism. But remember, we're also talking right about the time and shortly after the Protestant Reformation is going on. Well, up until 1492, there was only one Christian church. These missionaries came and with brutal effectiveness shared their religion, Christianity, our religion, Christianity, with the Native Americans or the Indians that were there. Now, how did they do it? Often through methods that were very vicious. Stories of, hey, convert or I'll kill you. Someone recants on their conversion and tries to go back to their old tribal ways and is tortured to death in public. That type of stuff. It appears to be more common than you would expect in so-called Christians. For that reason, many today tend to disown their accomplishments or achievements or their focus, however you want to refer to that. But it's important to note that the New World there was a group of people who were willing to dedicate their life, their goal, and it is that group of people who made South America, Brazil obviously is one of the places there. The Catholic Church sent Portuguese settled Brazil. So you have Portuguese and Spanish missionaries come, and that is the reason that today South America is so highly Catholic, and Mexico is so highly Catholic. Is because they brought with them their cultures, their values, and their religion, and they enforced that on the new people. Question number 10: Who was Father Junipero Serra, and what did he do? And that's Junipero Serra. He is 1769. He founded in San Diego the first of 21 missions that stretched up the coast of California, and there he was able to convert he's trying to convert the 300,000 native Californians, and it appears he converted many of them. Part of what he did there is he tried to teach them horticulture and basic crafts, like horticulture is some agricultural stuff. So he tried to, in a sense, civilize them. And when I say civilize, I mean civilize in his terms, not in their terms. I'm not part of the problem there. And again, he tried to teach them the white men's culture or the Spanish culture. The white men referring to that was what often Native Americans would refer to. And as a result, they lost touch with their native cultures and often lost their lives due to biological disease such as smallpox, etc. And that was some of it. I'm going to read here. Read here a paragraph out of the textbook, and I'm not going to do that very much, but the misdeeds of the Spanish in the New World obscured their substantial achievements and helped give birth to the Black Legend. This false concept held that the conquerors merely tortured and butchered the Indians, killing for Christ, stole their gold, infected them with smallpox, and left little but misery behind. This is false. The Spanish invaders did indeed kill, enslave, and infect countless diseases, but they also erected a colossal empire sprawling from California and Florida to all the way to the southern tip, Tierra del Fuego, I believe, in the south. They crafted their culture, laws, religion, and language onto a wide array of native societies, laying the foundations for a score of Spanish-speaking nations. And they also shared, and this is not exactly, I'm not reading anymore, and they also shared Christianity with the entire, as was known as Spanish Christianity or Catholic Christianity, the entire South America and much of Central and North America, as in Florida, California, and Mexico. As chapter 1 ends, I just want to remind you, you can see how vitally connected Christianity is with everything in history. And that's going to be a major point I'm going to keep talking about. But right here is an example of what happened in the New World. You cannot separate history and religion. The two are intrinsically tied. Today we talk about separation of church and state. Guess what? There is no separation of Christianity and history. Though often the theologies that the people believed drove the results, and the results often drove a future theology. And we're going to talk about that in future places. You're going to have readings that sort of show how ideas and thoughts led formations of empires and countries, etc. But that's just something I want to emphasize, and this is a great example. A lot of the drive for the Spanish and in Portuguese, but especially the Spanish in the New World, was to, in their minds, Christianize. Those friars and those monks and those missionaries that came, they came with pure intentions. They were going to Christianize what they believed were the heathen. How they did it? Often in ways that we would not condone at all. But they went with pure hearts trying to share the message of God. We're now ending with chapter 1. Chapter 1 and 2 are in 1 week. So I know some of these lectures were long. I'm going to try to shorten them up for chapter 2. But again, you can also do the reading and questions out of the page. All right. Thank you.